Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 249 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by jaysfromthecouch.com. We're glad to be coming back at you with another week of our live stream, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or on Twitter. We're coming at you live where you can watch us make fools of ourselves in real time. You can also send us your thoughts, questions, and you too can be part of the show. It's a lot of fun, and we appreciate everybody tuning in every week. Whether you miss it or you don't, remember that the audio version is available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere you find a podcast. You'll find Jays from the Couch there as well. We've got a good episode for you this week. We're going to look at some of the Blue Jays role players, the unsung heroes, as it were. And we're going to dive into what their roles may be and whether or not they're suited for those roles. Excuse me. And don't forget, live Tuesdays at 7 p.m., we've got the On Feck Circle with the Feckless Wonder, Steve Feck, coming at you with his takes, his genius, and his entertainment. And on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got the Sunny Side of the Dome with Karen Suter, who brings you positivity and logic, combines the two like nobody else I've ever seen, heard, or met. So tune in Tuesdays at 7, Thursdays at 7 on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. I'm your host, Sean Doyle. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. We're going to bring in our Jays from the Couch role players, not scared, not intimidated by his first appearance last week. Jason McDonald, back for more, are you?
Yes, I am, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you could make it again. This one will be interesting because we're going to be joined by the host of the On Feck Circle, the Feckless Wonder himself, Steve Feck, coming at us. We're going to get into some interesting conversations, and there is nobody better to include in that. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back after last week.
So, absolutely.
Hey, do you like the scruffy look?
Well, I mean, it's getting there. Yeah.
What? It's all the rage down in Dunedin, from what I understand. So what you do is you start growing something, but then you just sit back and say, it's fine. I don't need to do anything with it. I'm just going to let it just be the way it is.
I feel like that is a subtle reference to the Blue Jays starting their offseason, building their competitive team, and then just kind of ending it without really adding pitching or anything like that. I could be wrong, Steve, but I feel like I'm reading between your lines a little bit.
You mean between these lines?
Ouch.
Oh, that's not directed at you or Jason.
I guess we'll never know.
It's directed at my fan base. So
great. The views to the Oh man. Anyway, all right. So the whole reason for this episode, the role players, Blue Jays role players, there was an interesting little conversation at the Jays from the Couch bar, as it were, and our Jim Scott posed a little trivia question to us, and he said, last year in 2020, who was the emergency catcher? Because every teams have they've got their everyday catcher, they've got their backup catcher, and then a just in case guy where, in case all hell breaks loose and aliens abduct the other two, there's somebody to take his place. And so who was it last year? And right away I was like, Kevin Biggio. That's who it was. Because why not, right? He plays everything else, or at least that's what they try and make it. It turned out that I was only correct until Mr. Joe Panick entered the in the Jays roster, and whenever that was, because here's the thing. This is why I'm starting this episode off with an apology to Mr. Joseph Panick. I completely forgot that guy plays for the Toronto Blue Jays. I forgot that he had played, and I forgot that he is now about to play again with the Toronto Blue Jays. And I felt bad. And then, of course, Jason, don't feel bad. He's forgettable. I guess Jason joins me in apologizing. So a big fat apology, Jays from the Couch apology to Joseph Panick for forgetting that he existed in the lives of Blue Jays fans and players. I don't know. I feel bad for the guy, right? Because Steve just left. I apologize.
Maybe he's a Panic fan. Joe Panic
I was just
fan.
thinking. He's gone. He's like, no, you're apologizing to Joe Panic. I'm out of here. You hurt my feelings. And next, I'll start on Tanner Rourke and see what he does. But anyway, Jason, Steve will probably jump back in here because you can't get rid of him, so he'll be back. But Jason, let's talk about Joe Panic, right? And here he is. There he is, back at us. Steve, you didn't miss anything. Not a thing. We just sat here in absolute silence waiting for you to get back. But I'm going to throw it to you.
I'm sure you were morning. It came across my screen. Some guy named R. Atkins is interrupting your broadcast. I'm not sure who that is, but
oh man, he wants a word with you, sir.
Oh, I'm sure he does. I bet you could use the letters in my name.
So Karen wants to know if Steve did Steve panic and leave. So all right, enough tomfoolery. All right, Jason, I'm going to throw it to you. Joe Panic, a guy can play the infield somewhere, and and by somewhere I mean just about anywhere. And part of the offseason discussion had to do with whether or not there was a real legitimate backup for Bo Bichette. So Marcus Simeon was signed, right? So they seem to have all of their bases covered except third. And then they bring in Joe Panic, who doesn't address that. But regardless, Jason, what do you see as the role for Mr. Panic?
Well, I first of all, he has to be added to the roster, which means somebody has to leave the roster, which could be an issue. My big thing for me with Joe Panic is he's a veteran. He's been around. I think he won a World Series, at least one with San Francisco. They won every second year back then. So you can't have a team with a bunch of 23-year-olds. You need some 30 plus year olds who've been there, who've done it, who can take a walk, and he does that very well. And hopefully some of that will rub off. But I think he's there to lead them, and not so much in May and June, but in August and September when these kids are going to have their first real pennant race. I don't include last year as a real pennant race. It's good experience, but it was a 60-game season, and almost everything about last year I'm kind of writing off the good and the bad. But I think he's there to be a bit of a leader, even if he's not a Springer type of leader. He's not the all-star, but he can keep the guys in line a little bit and teach them how to be a professional, teach them how to win.
Right. Fair enough. Now, Steve, I'm going to throw it to you about Joe Panic because every team, and regardless of whether or not we, because here's the thing. When the Blue Jays make a signing, right? The George Springer, the Marcus Simeon, everybody's like, yeah, except you. And then, and then they sign a guy like Joe Panic, and everybody's like, oh, wait a minute. He's not. No. We want the big guns. We want and then you get excited because I think, Steve, you understand as well as I do that every team, every team who's going to compete needs somebody like a Joe Panic. And I think back to, Darwin Barney a few years ago and guys like that, right? And I've got my little, where is it here? My 1992 World Series mug. And I'm looking on here, and there are guys on here who absolutely were role players at that time, and they helped. And you need those. So the question is, Feck, is Joe Panic that kind of guy? Because I don't really care that he's not a big fish or whatever, but is Joe Panic the kind of guy you need on a championship team?
Oh, absolutely. And to build on the point that Jason had made, Panic really came alive last year, the last week of August and through the games in September. That's when he started to be more consistent. He started to get on base. He started to hit. People that don't obsess about baseball like me probably don't know that he was, an award-winning shortstop in college. They moved him to second because they were worried about his arm. I think Panick can play third base, not every day. I'm not sure his bat can carry him there, but to put somebody over there that's not going to cost you a game, I would play Joe Panick at third base, hands down, over just about everybody except for Biggio or Bichette. So I think Joe Panick is just a terrific signing. I mean, and if we remove somebody from the 40-man roster, is it really going to be somebody that's going to make us go back and say, oh, man, we lost this guy to waivers because we added Joe Panick? I don't think so. I think Joe Panick's got a lot to bring to this team this year.
Certainly on the defensive side of things, offensively speaking, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that he is, like his 2015 self or his 2017 self even. But, I mean, again, the thing about role players is that you don't need them to put up the numbers that he did. So, like looking back at 2015, he hit 312, and at 2017, he hit 288. You don't need that from a Joe Panick, from that role player type. You need him to come in once in a while, as Jason said, work the count, take a walk, and don't hurt us on defense. That's it. That's all you need from a Joe Panick. And so those guys, though, they're not going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars, but you can't win without them. You can't get through a season without them. So what I'd like to do is kind of just look at the Blue Jays roster and talk about some of these guys. And I'm going to start with the outfield, and I wonder if we put Jonathan Davis in that conversation, if he's a role player, and what role might that be? So, Jason, I'll throw that to you first. As far as Jonathan Davis goes, is he a role player? And if so, what role does he play?
I think at best he's a role player, especially if they had four outfielders. If they had Springer and Burrell Jr., Hernandez, and Grisham, then there's not much room. You might not even need another outfielder on the roster, especially with Biggio who can run out and play the outfield. So I think if that's the makeup of the team, then he is a role player at best. But I haven't seen enough of him to really, can he start? Do you want him starting 60, 70 games? If he does, something went drastically wrong.
Right. So, Steve, how about you? Where are you on Jonathan Davis here?
Jonathan Davis, I'm torn because I would love to see him get 200, 300 at bats at AAA. I mean, you just really just say, okay, let's see what you can do. You're going to play every day, no matter what. You're playing every day. Let's see what you really can do. But it is helpful as you get down the stretch to have a guy that you can stick in the outfield and that he's going to catch the ball. And when I think Jonathan Davis, I think Anthony Alford. And the Jays, I'm sorry, they squandered Alford's abilities. I know he was inconsistent. They never really gave him a chance. And I'm afraid they're going to stick him on the taxi squad so that he's available in case somebody, comes down with the virus or pulls a hamstring or something. But I don't see how that helps his development. So from a defensive standpoint, you can put him anywhere in the outfield that I would feel comfortable. I'm not going to have a Derek Fisher flashback if a fly ball goes to Jonathan Davis, but for his development, sort of like Kirk, as you addressed in your article today on JFtC.com, you'd love to see him get some at bats at AAA.
Right. And I think that's where, that's the only place, the logical place for him at this point. I mean, up until George Springer, and I actually have a piece coming out tomorrow, Monday, about Jonathan Davis and where he fits in. But up until the George Springer signing, Jonathan Davis was kind of if the Blue Jays offense is strong enough, they could carry him, right, for his defense alone. And then looking back at his minor league career, he's actually didn't perform as poorly as his major league experience would make you think. He's got double-digit home runs, 20-plus stolen bases. That is a center fielder in major leagues. Really, if he can continue that at the major league level, there's nothing wrong with putting him in center field. Problem is now they have George Springer, and as you guys already said, the outfield's full. So the only way Jonathan Davis makes the team is one of those guys goes down, is traded, Randall Grichuk, or excuse me, or when rosters expand. That's the only, and down the stretch, sure, a late defensive replacement. Jonathan Davis is your guy. It's just unfortunate that you mentioned Anthony Alford, and I would take him one step back and say Dalton Pompey as well. These guys, the Blue Jays organization has this thing with these kind of fringe outfielders where, they have the talent, they've got they just don't have a chance. And I'm worried that Jonathan Davis at 28 years old is going to fit into that category as well. So, the next guy I want to talk about, there are two for the infield. And I'll save the more interesting conversation for last. Let's start with Santiago Espinal. Jason, again, same question. What is his role? And if he has one, I don't know if he does.
I think Santiago Espinal, actually, first of all, I think the Jays did better in that trade for Steve Pearce than I initially gave him credit for. He looks like he can be a productive member of a 26-man roster. I think this year, similar to Panick, or not similar to Panick, Panick's going to be on the roster, and it's not going to be Espinal. If this was last year or 2 years ago, it would be Espinal, and you see what you get. But they're trying to win this year. And the good thing about where the Blue Jays are right now is you have to make really tough choices. Jonathan Davis is going to be a tough choice. But the quality of the major league team is such that you're going to have to, push some pretty good guys off the roster. Everything I've heard about Espinal has been amazing. He's fearless, but I think, what is he, 23 years old, 24 years old, something in that line. And if I'm building this team and I want to win this year, I need a veteran on the bench more than I need Espinal. Let him go to AAA, get 300 or 400 at bats, see what happens. And there's going to be injuries. He's going to get his shot because, you never go with the same opening day roster. By day two, it's the best plans are out of the window. But I think he serves at AAA, and he might get a call up later on when they need him.
Yeah. Right. Now, Steve, I know you're an Espinal fan.
I am.
But how do you see him fitting in to this picture? Because let's be real, with the third base is open, wide open, but the infield is still crowded.
Yes. And I mean, in Espinal, along the lines with Jonathan Davis or Kirk, he would better be served for his development to get those at bats at AAA. I agree. I mean, sticking him at the taxi squad, I mean, it's valuable for the major league club, I think, to have him readily accessible. But the Jays have guys that are non-roster guys. Breivik Valera, who seems to get signed every year by every team. He can play all over the place. He'll occasionally give you some offense when you don't expect it. Generally, if you play him against a bad pitcher, he may actually, drive a run in or get an extra base hit. You could put Breivik Valera on the taxi squad to sit there and do nothing, and you're not really losing anything because it's Breivik Valera. You get Espinal the at bats, and as Jason said, and I think you agree too, Sean, Panick's he's a valuable bench player for this team. It was either going to be Panick or Shaw they were going to re-sign. Panick, I think, brings a little bit more versatility. So as much as I would love to see Travis Shaw come back, Panick being on the bench, picks anybody, even pick up some guy during spring training as a veteran infield backup, put him on the taxi squad, get Espinal those at bats.
Right. I just wonder, when you look at Espinal, have they seen enough? That's my I guess in the back of my head, that's my question is, at 26 years old, have they seen enough of him to know whether or not he is a bench guy? Because I'm looking right now at his projections for next year, and they're all over the place, just all over the place with, like, as far as playing time goes, anywhere from 8 games to 120 games, right? So the projection systems, whoever that is, they don't even know where he fits in. And I just wonder if the Blue Jays front office even has an idea, or did they just kind of bring him back as a, this is a nice guy to have around, versatile. Let's just bring him in and hope for the best. But I think you guys are right. That I think Joe Panick kind of makes Espinal a AAA regular. And then, as you said, maybe he gets called up, maybe. But at the end of the day, it's a good problem to have, and you really won't miss him. If they need him, things may have gone wrong, and if they don't need him, we're not paying attention because things are going rather well. The second guy I want to talk about, though, to me, excuse me, I've come down with a cold, gentlemen. All right, and the first thing my son says to me is, "Dad, did you get the vid?" And I'm like, "No, Dad, no, I have something worse." And then my wife says, "It's a man cold," and I'm like, "Yep." So I mean, I've got something much worse. Of course, and I don't mean to make light of COVID-19. Please, I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. I was just joking. Anyway, all right, let's get to the second guy, Rowdy Toles. I honestly, at this point, am not sure where he fits in, because you look at the DH spot. Well, you've got Teoscar Hernandez, who's going to see some DH time. You've got Vlad, who's probably going to see some DH time, which means maybe Rowdy plays first. So even the DH spot seems crowded, especially given their penchant for, giving guys days off and cycling guys into positions that they shouldn't be playing anyway. So Jason, my question again, same question, is, does he have a role on this team, and what is it?
I definitely believe that Rowdy Toles has a role on this team, but I'm torn. I think more than anybody else on this team, when we talk about players' floors, players' ceilings, he probably has the lowest floor, but he also may have one of the highest ceilings. I could see him having a better offensive season than Vlad, even if Vlad has a good season. I don't know why, but I keep thinking of David Ortiz when I think of Rowdy Toles. I truly believe that he's a guy that they have to get consistent at bats at the major league level earlier in the season. And he made a comment, I think 2 years ago, and I should have looked it up before the podcast, about not worrying about pitch selection or something to that effect. And then he changed last year, or at least for a few weeks he changed. And his pitch selection got a lot better. He batted 500 for 2 weeks or something like that. But he's a guy that I think he get consistent at bats, and if he takes off, he could carry a team. He could also go over 20 and bury a team maybe. But I think he has a fairly low floor and a really, really high ceiling. And if I had to make a prediction, if they give him some at-bats, I think he'll have a good year. He's all contributor in the 6-7 spot in the lineup. Probably bat higher on a team that's not in contention. But I have high hopes for Rowdy Toles.
Right. So, Feck, I'm going to turn it over to you on Rowdy Toles. Where does he fit in?
The best thing that Rowdy Toles could do for the Blue Jays is have a big spring so that people come knocking and they buy into the hype and they buy into that high ceiling, and just make an offer to the Jays that the Jays really can't refuse, and just move them along. They've got plenty of Rowdy Toleses already on the roster. I I don't get it. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, personally, but of course, that shouldn't shock anybody. But I mean, I really thought that they should have kept Daniel Vogelberg or Vogelback or whatever his name is, Baby Back or whatever his name is. They should have kept Vogelberg back, and then they could have sent Toles down or put him on the taxi squad. You at least know what you get with him, and I don't know that you know what you get with Toles. He's just going to be one of those guys that tantalizes you with a hot streak, and then when you really need him, he disappears. So I hope he has the best spring training in the history of the Toronto Blue Jays, and that teams just come knocking and he gets traded and moved on. It answers a lot of other roster issues for them. It answers the Jonathan Davis question, things like that. If you have Rowdy Toles off the roster, I won't miss him.
Right. And I think Karen's question here is really to the point, right? Like, how likely is it that Rowdy's hot streak in 2020 is the real deal? And I wondered this near the end of 2019 as well. How much can you buy into Rowdy Toles? And I have to admit it, I may be in a minority here, but I just can't go all in on Rowdy Toles. And it took me a while to buy into Teoscar Hernandez as well. Rowdy, I'm still struggling with putting my faith in what we see from him, and you guys, both of you are people who will say, you believe what you see on the field, right? As opposed to the advanced metrics and all of that stuff. And in 111 games in 2019, he put up 21 home runs, didn't get on base much at all, under 300. But then in 2020, he was up 346, hitting 283 with 8 home runs, and projected at between 20 and 27 home runs for next year with an on-base percentage just above 320. I don't know. I mean, I don't put much stock in guys hitting 20, 25 home runs anymore. So, that's whatever. But I guess I fail to see how Rowdy Toles is going to live up to a 330, 340 on base percentage. So to answer Karen's question from me, I don't think he's going to live up to his 2020. Now, whether or not he lives up to his 2019 of on base percentage under 300, I don't know that either. I just don't. For some reason, I can't formulate an opinion, a definitive opinion on Rowdy Toles. But Jason, I'll throw it to you to answer Karen's question here.
How likely is this? I think it's not likely that he keeps up those exact numbers. But I'll tell you this, I wouldn't be a GM that gives up on him at this point in his career, because he's going to go on and he's going to have a few big years somewhere, and I want them in Skydome, in Rogers Center, or wherever the Jays play this year. It doesn't matter where they play. I'm not going to be watching them live anyway. I'm high on Rowdy.
All right, fair enough, Steve. How likely is it that his 2020 is the real deal?
Again, I'm not a believer. Okay, I believe more. I would rather have Rowdy Yates, the old Cowboy star, than Rowdy Toles on a roster. The league is full of guys like Rowdy Toles, Nomar Mazara, Gregory Polanco. They have that just dazzling one season or even half a season, and everyone's like, oh, I love the tools. I love what he could bring. I don't want to be the guy that's going to give up on him. And then you hang on to him too long, and then you get nothing for him. Unless you can sell him to Korea or Japan or something. I mean, I just don't see what everyone else sees. And I know, okay, yes, he had that power show in 2019, which was pretty impressive. So you kind of make, well, let's see what happens. I didn't see, except for that little 2-week burst last year, I didn't see a consistent major league hitter. So I'm going to say he's not going to replicate those numbers. That's going to be his high water mark. And it's maybe you try to cash in if he gets another hot streak while you can. When the iron's hot, even if you get someone that has a high ceiling at a lower level in the minor leagues, I think you move a Rowdy Toles.
Right. Yeah, I think I would probably be, more leaning toward your Steve's side of things on Rowdy. I just don't. I would love for him to prove me wrong, but if you're only, I guess if your only value is in 25 home runs because you can't get on base and you only play first base, there's not a whole lot of value there. Even with a Mazzara or a Polanco, at least there's some outfield contributions there. But Rowdy doesn't have that. And for the love of God, we're not seeing him run around the outfield. They may try Biggio, but they're not going Rowdy. Anyway, so we didn't even get to talk about pitchers, and maybe we can do that next week because I do want to save time for our hot takes. Because the pitching side is actually probably even the more interesting of the two, right? When you talk about role players, you've got guys like Steve Matz, you've got Ross Stripling and Tyler Chatwood, and even Trent Thornton and guys like that, right? So there's a lot of I guess a lot of guys who we would really have to discuss and think about, man, what is it that they're going to contribute this year? Because at this point, it could go in a million different directions, just like our hot takes. So all right, let's get it hot in her. All right, so Jason, because you are returning and you've got one under your belt, I am going to defer to you to kick us off here for your hot take.
Last week I said that Ray was going to be the Jays' most valuable pitcher. So it's hard to beat that one. But I think today I'm going to talk about Matz. In the last 7 days, I got higher. The more I think about Matz, maybe I'm just hoping. I think he's going to have a good year. And I'm going to say that Matz is going to pitch 150 innings at least. And he's going to have an ERA under 4.
Wow. That's bold. Now, within the realm of possibility, though, which is why it's such a good hot take. I'll be interested to see how they use Steve Matz. Right now is scheduled to start. Whether or not he keeps that job will be interesting. But an ERA under 4 that's quite a bold statement. So you can come back again because your hot takes are you don't disappoint.
Nobody remembers a boring hot take.
That's right. That's true. All right, Feck, your turn, bud.
Well, I kind of used my hot take with the Rowdy Toles thing, having a hot spring and getting traded, so I need to kind of work on the fly here. I believe that Kevin Biggio will continue his streak of not being thrown out, stealing bases throughout the entire 2021 season and start flirting with the major league record, which I just forgot what it was, but if he can go through the year without being thrown out, I think he's either closing in on or will surpass the major league record for consecutive stolen bases without being caught.
Now that would be impressive. That would be impressive if he could manage another, because I think what he's at 20 now, 14 from 2019, and then 6 from last season. So I'm going to put you on the spot then. How many does he get? And I know, leave aside the record because but how many stolen bases will he get in a full season?
I'm going to say 25.
I was going to say, can he do 20? Okay, 25 stolen bases without getting caught. That is okay. I can't wait for these.
Is that 25 this year or 25?
No, 25 just this year.
So
all right.
Reigns has the record at 27 to start a career. I just looked it up.
Wow.
There you go. So 27 to start a career, and Biggio's already at 20. So
So
now,
he-
Steve, when does he break the record?
Well, Reigns probably did his in 3 days. So
I say that he breaks the record May 15th.
Wow, I was even just asking, hoping you would pin down a month, but okay, May 15th, Kevin Biggio will have stolen his 8th base. Okay.
Easily. I think he's going to be much more aggressive early, because then that really changes how the pitchers will deal with him when he's on base. You're going to start getting into coaching staff and pitching staff's heads. So then he can maybe back off a little bit, be more selective. But I think by May 15th, he's got the major league record to start a career.
Amazing. And, that just only, of course, benefits George Springer, who should be hitting behind him. If Biggio is not leading off and George Springer hitting second, I might be a little upset. And I know that's like a really tiny thing to be upset about, because everybody's ready to, George Springer, he's our leadoff hitter, blah, blah. Not this year. Anyway, Karen, Steve, just so you know, Karen's watching at home, and she says July 1st at Rogers Center is when he breaks it.
That would be awesome. I cannot. That is going to be Mardi Gras. Even if they can play games, they should wait until that Mariner series at the end of June to Canada Day. It should be the most memorable national holiday since Canada actually became an independent country.
All right, Mardi Gras. Well, keep your shirt on, Steve. All right. Here's mine. And I'm channeling my inner Feck at this point. I don't know that they will pull off a big trade in July in mid-season. They're not trading for an ace or a number 2. They're not doing it. They will not give up the farm. They value their system more, because they don't necessarily need that pitching. They'll figure it out. We saw them last year in the playoffs for that brief stint. They didn't even have Ryu start game 1. Right? So they're going to strategy their way through the postseason, and they're not going big at the July trade deadline because they value their farm system too much. So,
Like it.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, because I like it. I like it. I would have gone the Ross Atkins's avenue, but I mean, I'll go with that. He values the system too much. I've been criticizing him all along about that, so I think that's an awesome hot take.
No, I think he does. I don't know that he's afraid. I really don't know that that's it. I just think that it's he doesn't think it's smart, right? So I see you there. I see you. All right. Excuse me. So we're just about out of time here, gentlemen, and this one flew by, episode 249 of the Jays from the Couch podcast, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and asked questions and sent comments and all that fun stuff. We really appreciate it. Here's a question, just because I think it's hilarious. Are you still watching hockey? The answer is hell no. I'm not a hockey person. I know Jason is obsessed with hockey. His boys are involved, and Steve is a hockey guy as well. But I just wanted to say hell no to hockey. I can't wait till baseball starts. Anyway, yes. So, audio version on Google, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, everywhere you find a podcast. You know the drill. Look for Jays from the Couch Radio everywhere. Just look for it everywhere and click that subscribe button. You'll find us everywhere. Audio, video, whatever. Print, online print, but we're there too. Jays from the Couch. Follow us, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Jason, let everybody know how they can follow you.
You can follow me on Twitter at JMcDonaldJason. That's JMacDonaldJason.
Beautiful. And Feck, how can everybody follow you? And give us a plug for the On Feck Circle on Tuesday.
Well, on Tuesday we're going to talk about hockey. No. We're going to bring back the FECU projections, and we're going to compare the Blue Jays to their AL East counterparts and see, according to what WAR and ZIP projections are, and what the FECU projections are, we'll see where are the Jays going to kind of fall. So that's what. It's what the show is going to be about. You can follow me at US of Jays on Twitter. There's also a US of Jays Facebook page, but some of you have found and left me some very heartwarming messages, and I appreciate that. But again, I mean, even during this show or other shows, if you leave a message either at US of Jays or the US of Jays Facebook page, I do check it on a daily basis. I would love to reply. And I don't care if you call me an idiot. Just explain to me why I'm an idiot.
Explain to me why they're wrong, right, Steve?
Yeah. Well, I can't always do that.
You might need a longer podcast.
I need a mini series.
That's not in the budget. Sorry. All right. So anyway, thank you to everybody for tuning in for another week. We really appreciate it. Episode 250 coming at you next week. I'm just blown away by the support we've had over the years, and I deeply appreciate it. So for Steve, for Jason, for Joe Panick, and Rowdy Toles, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.